house in Baltimore in London town, and everything went well except the football game. And for all the folks who went over, my apologies and my similar distress of flying all day, flying all night, oyster carting around London. This guy here has spent a long time in the National Football League, and he was actually in the inside of the New Orleans Saints when they were a bad franchise and when they were a good franchise. He knows the other side of some lopsided defeats, as well as with the Atlanta Falcons. He is the pride and joy of Mount St. Joe, as well as the Loyola Greyhounds, but never a Don. We welcome Chris Pica, our defending champion. He's blog and tackle out on Twitter, and of course the communications director of the Bahamas Bowl, as well as the Pro Football Writers of Association of America. I always want to say of America Association. Chris, welcome in from Atlanta, Georgia. I know it's been a very, very tumultuous week, and I'm not just talking about my cat, man.
Well, it's as I think as we talked about last week, there was a couple of numbers I looked at and went, this could be a little bit of a little tougher of a game than you think. And unfortunately, the Ravens ran into quite the buzzsaw in the Jaguars, and which is going to leave the fan base wondering, what's going to happen next with the Steelers. And the team has to go back and regroup quickly and get ready for a tough division game this week, which is, a game that everyone knows is a huge game in the NFL.
We talked a lot about the London game, and obviously John, said some things in the post-game press conference on Monday about the Ravens not wanting to go over there and play. The fact of the matter is nobody wants to go over there and play, right? I mean, and I talked all last week about the Jaguars having this be a home game that doesn't feel, smell, taste, sound, look like a home game at all, other than the flags that they give out, that they wave around a little bit. And they had plenty of opportunity to wave them around, Chris. But and I guess that there are some Jacksonville Jaguar fans there, but that game was a Ravens home game, and our fans got excited. Everybody's excited about it other than the organization, kind of, sort of, right? Like, they went over, they painted up the bus, they ran around, but no one likes getting on that plane, right?
Well, it's a long trip, okay? It's something completely out of the ordinary. I mean, even the longest road trip in the league, which is Miami to Seattle, okay? And that's a long haul to get from point A to point B when those two teams play. Is nothing like having to go over, basically 5 time zones to play a game, which is, 9:30 in the morning Eastern time. And your body's not ready. You're trying to get acclimated as quickly as possible. And some teams have done different ways of dealing with that trip. Some teams have gone over very early in the week to try to get 4 or 5 days on the ground there and be ready to go on Sunday. Other teams like the Ravens have chosen to come in much later in the week to try to get as much done at home. And I've said this a million times. NFL people, coaches, players, staffers are all creatures of habit. And something like this is completely unlike. And I know, I know the teams may not necessarily want to go over, but they know it's on the schedule. They know that everybody's going to have to make that trip at least once at some point here, the next few years, especially now the league is up to 4 games. And once the new stadium is open in Tottenham for the Hotspur and that the NFL is going to use, the amount of games over there may go up even more. So, and it's just a fact of life. The NFL wants to do business in England. They feel it's...
And business is good, by the way. And, having been over there and witnessed it, riding the subway over there, it's not fake, man. I mean, and everybody told me that, any reporter, any baldinger, anybody that's been over there and called a game or played in a game over there, you sense it and you walk around. But on Sunday, you feel it. I mean, anywhere you were in London walking around, any subway you were on, going in any direction. I got off at Baker Street. We got off downtown. We changed trains. You saw jerseys everywhere on a Sunday in London. I mean, it was all the colors of the rainbow, dude. I mean, you saw what I did out on social media. I was taking pictures of people in various uniforms. I mean, there's a wild, wide fan base there, but it's certainly not Jaguar-centric, that's for sure.
No, it's not. And a good friend of mine that works Super Bowl every year, that works for NFL Europe in England, David Tossell, a long-time PR guy, also worked in the newspaper industry, always said, you go to those games and you're going to see they're just NFL fans. They're just happy to have a game in the stadium. It may not be their particular team, but they're excited about buying the ticket and coming in and seeing live football.
Well, can you imagine in this
football.
country if Tottenham came over here and played West Ham in Chicago in a real match, and Real Madrid came over and played Barcelona at MetLife Stadium in a real match, right? Like, it would be a different thing if it weren't friendlies or exhibitions and that's where it started. Those fans over there, they all buy the 4-pack now. You know, they've moved it from 1 game to 2 games to, you know, that people say we buy all the games and we put our Cardinals or our Cowboys or our Browns, whatever their jersey is, and we go to the game. So I talked to a ton of people. I mean, it was a lovely experience until they kicked the ball, Chris. And then, you know, as we'll get into, that's when all hell broke loose, right?
Yeah, like I said, I think for the fans, it's a once-in-a-lifetime trip, and from everything, you know, everything you hear and read, it's, you know, the most amount of NFL fans from one team's fan base that made the trip over there. And it's tough when you're the fan of that particular team, and your club is getting kicked. It almost got in soccer parlance, almost got clean sheeted, except for a late touchdown. And that's, you know, so you spend a lot of money to go over there, and your team basically lays an egg. That's probably not going to leave a good taste in a lot of mouths of people who made that trip. But I think when you step back and realize you've gotten a chance to go to London, to see a game there, to see the city, to do something that's completely out of the ordinary in an NFL experience, I think some people will look back on years from now and say, hey, it was a great trip. Yeah, they lost, but they're not really going to care about the final score. They will, you know, for a few weeks. But generally, it's a trip of a lifetime for a lot of fans.
Well, it's going to be that. Remember that time we went over to London and we did this? We saw Big Ben and Westminster Abbey and we met the Queen. And, yeah, I would agree with you. I think a lot of people in our trip, I didn't have completely sour people anywhere around me on the plane that I took home. But, you know, when you're losing 44-0 and you look up and the game never really started, and, you know, Luke and I discussed that at length on Monday here at WNST, but, you know, had plenty of time to discuss it with fans as well. I mean, there is a point within the organization where it is just a loss, but I think from top to bottom, the amount of effort that goes into that game, the amount of preparation that goes into that game, the amount of sort of inertia they had at 2-0 to go over there, I don't know how they're going to dust off from this. Now they've lost Brent Urban. We don't know where Brandon Williams is. We do know where Marshall Yonda is. You know, Chris, I mean, I don't know how many organizations a franchise can take, and I'm certainly not giving anyone a mulligan, and we'll get to the kneeling and all that stuff in a minute as well. But in a season where, you know, you're sort of teetering a little bit. Look, we saw Oakland and Pittsburgh both lose, right? So you got Pittsburgh this week, Oakland next week. You got to go out there and play. Oakland came across the country and got their ass beat down in D.C. the other night. So I don't know that, you know, there's any disgrace in losing in London, but certainly the 44-0 that was hung on them before garbage time took over and Ryan Mallett took over, which is garbage time in these parts. You know, I don't know what you hang your hat on this week if you're John Harbaugh and trying to get ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they'd say, well, we didn't overlook Jacksonville. We didn't overlook the London trip. We didn't overlook the 20,000 fans that went over there. But, boy, they got a little dust off and a little RA, as Coach Schwartz would say, right?
Yeah, and I think I said this on social media. I think I almost would have thought that Harbaugh might have dusted off his inner Belichick and right after the game just said, we're on to Pittsburgh, and lose this one in the rearview mirror as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, the injury situation is not going to get any better. They got a ton of guys on the IR. They've got very key players on there, and it's not easy. This next 2 games are not going to be easy, and that's what I say about the NFL. You've got to bank those victories when and where you can. And when you make a trip like that to London, with the exception of a potential tie game over there, somebody's going to lose and make that trip home and wonder why they had to do it in the first place, while the winning team will sit back and go, hey, this has been great. You know, maybe we'll do this again down the road. We'd be happy to do it. Well, you know, we won the game. We had a great experience. It's not unlike doing a bowl game in the Bahamas. The winning team is always happy about the trip, and the losing team will always find something to pick about maybe the accommodations or the practice facility or the game day. And that's just par for the course because people are disappointed you lose, and you're looking for reasons why. But, you know, the NFL schedule demands that you take a step back and you get this game in the rearview mirror as quickly as possible. And now you're worried about Pittsburgh and how you're going to match up with the Steelers.
He is Chris Pica. He is Blog and Tackle out on Twitter, and one of our oldest friends in media around here these days, doing things as the communications director at the Bahamas Bowl, as well as at the Pro Football Writers Association of America. They got to take some of the letters out of that, Chris. And, certainly for the Pro Football Writers Association of America, there is no hotter topic than taking the knee. So, give me the PR shine on this as you know it from your long advanced career in PR. Are you shocked that it's come to this point?
No, and you're sitting. A lot of the directors were probably sitting in team meetings, and we're probably meeting with owner, general manager, head coach at some point to just kind of make sure everybody's on the same page. And I'm sure that every owner sat with their PR director to come up with statement or statements that they were going to put out, prior to or after the national anthem and Sunday's games and Monday's games. So, you've got a lot of things that are going on that way. Ultimately, what the players do, and it's almost easy from that standpoint, whatever the players are going to do, they're going to do. However they decide. And there were some interesting pieces in Sports Illustrated and other outlets about how teams came up with how they were going to do it. And, different teams, some locked arms with their owner. Dallas actually took a knee prior to the anthem and then stood for the anthem, and Jerry Jones was down there with them. So everybody had a different way of doing it, but from a PR standpoint, mainly it's making sure that whatever messaging the league office is putting out, you know what the league is going to put out about it. And unfortunately, there was only a 48-hour period. I mean, all of this really started Friday night, and you've got games on Sunday, which means on Saturday you're dealing with this over a long period of time with your team leaders and your coaches, and you've got to sit with your owner to figure out what they want to say. And some of the owners financially supported the inaugural committee for the president. So you have some relationships there that, you got to figure out what you want to say, how you want to say it. It's a minefield in a lot of ways. It's a minefield because much like our country is divided in certain ways, and I don't want to get into politics, but we'll just say that there are people who look at the anthem as representing our military, representing.
Well, we've made it that way, haven't we? With $800,000 sponsorships and flyovers and flags as big as the stadium. I mean, we've turned it into that. Sport in America has turned it into. It's not that way anywhere else in the world. You know that, Chris. It's not that way anywhere else in the world. It's that way here because sports franchises have benefited from this over the last 20, 25 years, that flying the flag, doing the seventh inning stretch, and God bless American baseball, and it's good for business to fly the flag and wear the flag and be the flag and, envelope the flag, and on the 4th of July, wear the flag. Baseball has done that longer and better and, quite frankly, whiter than anybody else has done it.
And I think that's true. I think Bob Costas made a great point on CNN earlier in the week about it, and talking about the fact that that basically the NFL sort of created their own monster here in the way that they do wrap themselves up in the flag and the patriotic portion of it. So you have a segment of the population who certainly believe it's that way, and if you don't stand for the anthem, if you do anything that is other than standing, putting your hand over your heart, you're disrespecting those who made the ultimate sacrifice. And so there's a lot of symbolism involved with the flag and the anthem, and that's certainly understandable. And there are other people who, if you talk to a lot of the players, it's about things that are going on in society, especially with African-American players, about police brutality in certain places. Certainly Baltimore's not immune to that. That there are other factors at play into their decision to do this, and certainly some comments that were made at a political rally. Now, and I preface as it's what that was on Friday for the president, reverberated through those communities, reverberated to those athletes, and it was almost like daring them basically to do something on Sunday in some respects. And I thought the players and the teams showed an appropriate amount of thought and basically allowed everyone to make decisions on how they wanted to handle it and how they wanted to protest this. So but you're not going to satisfy anybody. It's like I said, the people that look at it as military and the flag, you're disrespecting them. Sunday was, I believe, Gold Star Mother's Day in the country proclamated.
Well, look, man, you got Jerry Jones taking a knee now, and he was the one owner that had nothing to say, and along with Kraft, who's been the most supportive of the guy running the country.
Right, and so you've got a lot of, like I said, there are a lot of minefields here. This is not an easy thing to deal with, and the amount of time they had to do it in, you didn't have a week. You basically had 2 days, and we'll run it back to the Ravens and the Jaguars. They're completely out of the country. Okay, they're in England when this happens on Friday. So, and they're the first game on the docket on Sunday morning. So they sort of set the tone for the rest of the day. And and I'm sure that's something that and the Ravens brass will never say that, but I'm sure that's something that from owner down to coach, they probably didn't. They certainly didn't appreciate that they were the first ones to have to deal with this on Sunday, the first game of the day. And I'm sure it's something that they're, like I said, they'll never say it publicly, but I'm sure internally it's something they're probably just shaking their head at.
Well, then there's Goodell being involved with this. And one of the reports here, Chris, and you and I have been up and down the river with collective bargaining and the good guys and the bad guys and the rich guys and the richer guys. This one this weekend really felt like kind of a collective Goodell, the owners, the Players Association. I mean, everybody felt a little lockstep on this thing that they're pretty dug in, and I don't think that most of them really care what, anyone thinks at this point. They're the NFL. They're going to continue to play. Guys, as you've pointed out, are going to do what they're going to do. But this is a rare, rare time where everyone's lockstep.
It is interesting. The NFLPA certainly, had D. Smith, and Georgia Talla had a lot of things to say about this on Saturday, and I'm sure they were in contact with the player reps at each of the teams to kind of talk about this. And, ultimately what came down in most instances was saying each one of you has the freedom of speech to make your decision however you want to handle or protest this on Sunday. If you want to stand, stand. If you want to kneel, kneel. Some guys sat. Some guys stretched. Some teams elected to stay back in the locker room. And, people may forget that when I worked in the league from 2000 to 2006, we took the field after the anthem. Okay, the anthem was never on television, prior to the game. You had the anthem, team introductions, coin flip, play ball at 2 minutes or 3 minutes after the hour. Okay? So you weren't actually physically out on the field. Some teams chose not to do that. Obviously, the Steelers were one of those teams, but they had a player who served 3 tours in the armed services, chose to walk out and put his hand over his heart and be on the field surface. And so that's caused some things, too, within the Pittsburgh organization. So everybody had to try to find a way to handle it in a short amount of time. Was not ideal. I'm more interested to see with a week beyond it now what happens this coming week with teams, and how they'll handle it this coming week once everybody's had a chance to take a breath and see sort of what the winds are bringing, over the next week from the league level. Is there going to be additional headlines coming from the president's office? Who knows? And so they'll have a week to think about it and decide how they want to handle this going forward. Is this going to be something we're going to see all year long? Is this something that's only going to be a few weeks? No one really knows. We are very much in uncharted territory here.
He is Chris Pica. He is Blog and Tackle Out on Twitter, covering the National Football League. Some thoughts on the Ravens and bouncing back, Steelers and Raiders back-to-back here. Aside from the knee, aside from pissed off white fans, because let's just be honest, those are the ones that are pissed off at this point, and all the nonsense and all the noise going on. They are into the meat, the heart, and the soul of the football season, and certainly things aren't right for the football team right now. I would say on the field and certainly off the field, Bisciotti's going to have his hands full around here. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No, and again, every week is a season in the NFL, and I said this on Sunday, and I believe it. The Ravens were not as good as they looked in weeks 1 and 2, and they're not as bad as they looked against the Jaguars, okay? The truth is somewhere in the middle, and you've got to find ways to get wins where you can. I think Sunday's game against Pittsburgh is winnable, but they certainly have to improve where they were from Sunday's game. And some of it's going to be injury related. Flacco, can't have a worse day. He's got to be better than that. The run game has to be better. And they'll see some things from Pittsburgh's game against Chicago that they can exploit. I mean, if you find a way and beat Pittsburgh and then you're 3-1, with divisional victories, boy, that season starts looking a lot better on Sunday after the game. Okay, before they go to Oakland, now you've got you've got 3 division wins in hand and a 3-1 record. So this is a key game, and every game is key in 16, but divisional games count too. So you just have to put Jacksonville behind you to say, hey, it just wasn't our best effort. We just got to worry about what's ahead of us now on a team that we know very well, and find a way to win. Get to 3-1. The fans will take a deep breath. The team will take a deep breath. If they lose and fall to 2-2, and you're going to a vastly improved Oakland team, might be one of the best teams in the NFL, or at least in the AFC. Boy, it's this could snowball in a hurry, and that's why the Steelers game is just so incredibly important at this early stage of the season.
And also washing out the awfulness. And, I don't think that that's so bad. I mean, I don't think if they went out and played Jacksonville again next week in Jacksonville or here, they'd be losing 44-0. But I am very, very concerned about the O and the D line. And now the loss of Brent Urban takes something that was a strength of this football team and has now diminished it, and that's concerning because everything they did in the first 2 weeks was predicated on stopping the run. Once they stopped the run, that opened everything else up for the defense to be great. That didn't happen on Sunday. I don't know if that's going to happen this Sunday, given the Steelers' running game. I don't know if that's going to happen against the Oakland Raiders when they wind, Skittle guy up,
It makes it difficult, but I also, I think it's also fair to say that you have to give Jacksonville a lot of credit. And Blake Bortles probably played one of his best games of his career. They had everything going their way, and sometimes it's just your day. I believe you and I were in Tampa Bay a few years ago on a day where the Ravens had their way with the Buccaneers and absolutely had their way in the first half that everything went right for Baltimore. So, sometimes you're gonna have a day like that where you're gonna, you play very, very well like Jacksonville did and you get a huge lead. And there are going to be some days where you're going to be on the opposite end of it. I mean, Lord knows, I saw Brett Favre throw 6 touchdowns against us in Green Bay, and we got plastered in halftime. I sat down with the longtime and late Packers PR man, Lee Remmel, and I looked at him and I said, well, enough about my day. How are you doing? Because basically my story's written, Favre's already thrown 5. And we had Peyton Manning come into the Superdome do the same thing to us. Some nights it's just not your night. It doesn't mean that you're a bad football team. It just means it wasn't your day. The other team played better. Give them the credit, and now you got to worry about yourselves now going forward to make sure you don't do it again.
Chris, rest up, man. We got baseball playoffs getting going here next week. I know what a baseball fan you are as well. Not in Atlanta where you are, not here in Baltimore, of course. We don't play October baseball here this year, but we'll be seeing some good baseball, and I'll be checking in with you, talking some more football, and we'll see who's taking the knee and who's running the ball and who's not this week here in the NFL. Great having you on, Chris.
Great, Nestor. Thank you as always.
You got it. The pride of Mount St. Joe and the Gales, as well as the Loyola Greyhounds now down in Atlanta, doing the communications thing for the Bahamas Bowl, as well as for the Pro Football Writers Association of America. We always blessed to have Chris Pike around here, shedding some insights after a decade of work in the National Football League in front offices. All right, let's go get get a break here real quick. I tell you what, man, coming back from London, the time change, the warp, the 5 hours, the 44-7, the loss of my beloved Kitty, who I am writing about at WNST.net this week. We've got a relatively quiet week around here. We're going to get to the knee. We're going to be talking to a lot of people about a lot of things. We're going to get a little hockey in here, a little baseball preview coming up on the playoffs next week. But tons of Ravens, tons of Steelers, and tons of social issues. The Buy a Toyota Audio Vault is there for you 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We are crystal clear anywhere in the world, including London, because I tried the app over there and it totally works because they have the internet there, even though their internet sucks. The morning newspaper delivers at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, guaranteed. Last but never least, any breaking news happens first on our WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis Colazzos will be here on Thursday driving you home, getting you ready with the SSV on WNST. It is still Pittsburgh Sucks week around here. At least it will be on my social media. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.